Dude, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you.
This has been I mean, we've talked about this for,
Yeah.
Had the conversation we should get together. It never happened, so,
Yeah.
Here we finally are.
Like 13 years later.
Yeah.
So what? It was at the Fit Expo in Ottawa.
Yeah, it was called, I think, Ottawa National Capital Fit Day or some shit like that. Yeah. I'm interested. I want to hear your rendition of this first.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So the way I remember is, like I was kind of working, just walking around. Like there was a tournament there that day, and I was prepping for a big match, a world title shot.
Okay.
Against a guy called Andre Pushkar.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Right. And so the thought was at the end of the tournament, I'd just do this thing we call king of the table.
Yeah.
Where, get as many matches in with as many people as possible. And I think, I was trying to remember, because I mean, I've never really met your wife, but I think I did meet her that day. Was she there that day?
I can't remember.
I think she might have been.
There was a girl with me.
Okay.
It wasn't my wife.
Okay.
Because 2012, actually, no, 2012, at that point, I met Melissa later that year.
Okay.
So Melissa and I have been together since 2012.
Okay.
But I was working for Popeyes.
Right.
I had a booth there.
Yes.
So the girl that was like our demo girl, this is like this little cute blonde girl.
Right.
Named Bryn, yeah. So she was the one that wanted to go up and arm wrestle you.
Yes.
And then kind of, I got peer pressured into it by the...
That's the way I remember it too.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, but you weren't there yet.
No.
Right. And so I'd gone through a ton of people,
Yeah.
mostly my kids.
Yeah.
It was just easy days
Yeah.
almost. And then I see you coming up to the stage, and you were looking like an absolute tank.
Especially, this was like a natural bodybuilding show for people too. This was like a local natural show. So like, even at that point, I was early in my bodybuilding career. I still stood out like a sore thumb in that kind of arena.
Yeah,
you
you
know?
were massive.
Yeah.
You were massive, and you're coming up. Doggy, get out of here. Get. You were coming up, and I'm like, oh man. I'm like, this is a strong guy. I have to be careful with this guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, because these things happen. These arm breaks happen, right? So we're talking, and I'm getting a feel for you, like, and we kind of pressure up, and you're fucking strong. Mm-hmm. Like, you're definitely the strongest guy I've pulled all day. And you never know with people. What you see is not always what you get.
100%. Yeah.
Especially from the world of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Like, I've arm wrestled tons of bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Some of them are not that strong.
No.
And some of them are as strong as they look.
Sure.
They're fucking incredible athletes,
Yeah.
right? So you were super diesel strong, and I'm like, hey buddy, you ever do this before? Mm-hmm. And you were like, nah, just kind of with my friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, would you want to come out and train with us sometime? And you were like, I'd love that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll get your number afterwards. And then
The number afterwards, obviously.
yeah. And then I'm like, well, listen, I'm gonna pin you.
Yeah. I remember this very distinctly of you saying it like that.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey, you're really strong, buddy. I'm going to pin you now. And then that's where my fucking ego kicked in, So I'm like, well, fuck this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you doubled down, and I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. I'm like, I'm gonna pin. And that's when
It went nowhere. It was just like, poof.
Right.
Yeah.
Your body went,
Yeah.
your arm stayed in one place.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, so you stood up, and we looked at each other, and
Yeah.
kind of handed you your
Handed
arm.
me my arm, yeah.
Yeah, and but I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of break arms.
Yeah.
You handle it better than anybody I've seen.
Thank you. Yeah.
You didn't whine, you
Take
didn't
something
cry, you didn't scream. You were quiet. You just were like very contemplative, and you held it. You went a bit white after a few minutes.
The shock sitting in there, but
But you were totally cool as a cucumber, man. You were fucking cool as a cucumber. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, that dude broke his arm. He didn't even whimper. Like, I was like, that's pretty awesome. And then I kind of tried to keep my tabs on you a little bit. Somebody told me that they saw you 5 weeks later in the gym.
I saw your wife.
I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw your wife. I saw Jody at the gym not long later. And I didn't know who she was at the time because I'd only met you that one time. Right. And I think it was her that she came up to me at the gym and she introduced and said who she was. Yeah. And, blah, 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 and we had like a quick chat. But yeah, good life. Yeah, I saw her there. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I heard it from a lot of people. They're like, yeah, he's working out.
I was back in the gym in 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I remembered honestly very similar, and I've never heard your side of it. Yeah. And I've obviously told this story on my YouTube or in public a million times. So it's interesting to hear yours because it's almost the exact same. I remember almost the same. Yeah. It was the girl went up. She wanted to arm wrestle. She wanted me to take some pictures, video, whatever. So I kind of went up with her. And then I wasn't going to arm wrestle, and then I kind of got the other people around there, and her's like, oh, come on, give him a go. Yeah. Because they see a big guy like me, they think I'll be a challenge. Right. You know. I'll say, and I've said this before, I had no fucking delusions of grandeur. I know that there's levels, and it's not...
Please don't make me take my shirt off.
Yeah. But I know that it's not the same. It's like you said, it's not the same strength. It's completely different. It's muscles we don't use. There's almost no, strong guys, it does help, but it's not the same.
And there's the technique, too.
And the technique, which obviously is what was my downfall in this situation, So then I remember going up, and same kind of thing. You were like, okay, let me feel what you got. And then you gave me a few tips. Like you said, you'd asked me if I'd done this before. You gave me a few tips, like, get my body closer, keep the elbow tight into the body and to get my leg around the table, gave me a few kind of pointers. And then just like you said, you're like, all right, you're strong. I'm going to pin you now. And you said so matter of fact, which it is matter of fact, obviously. But that at the time, my extreme competitiveness kicked in. So instead of just letting it happen, I'm like, bear down. And then, all I remember is 3, 2, 1, they kind of went and my arm just pop and it went out this way. And you kind of grabbed it and put it back in. Like you said, kind of handed me my arm, I remember you kind of handing it to me. And then I look up at you and I'm like, that's broken. And you're like, yeah, buddy, that's broken. And then I was like, fuck. Okay. And then I remember the kind of feeling like I was a bit white, a bit woozy. And then I walked over to the booth of Popeyes where I was working. Yeah. And I had to go to the guys and be like, hey guys, I just broke my arm. And they thought I was joking. I'm just walking up nonchalant, hey, my arm's fucking broken. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I was just arm wrestling. I broke my arm. I think I need to go to the hospital. So then they got an ambulance there and I had to get in an ambulance. Because I was working, so it had to be official and an ambulance and all that shit. Yeah. So I got in an ambulance and drove down. But I remember, the one thing I remember distinctly is, at the time, because I was at the CE Center, right down by the airport, that road there was under construction. Yeah. So it was all fucking rough, and I'm in the back of this ambulance with my arm, and the bone's like this, you know? I'm in the back of the ambulance, it's boom, 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 and this fucking hitting nerves, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the worst, but yeah, no, and then I went to the hospital. They didn't do anything, because the orthopedic surgeon that ended up doing it, that was on a Saturday, I think we were. He ended up doing the surgery on Wednesday. So he's just go home, we'll see you Wednesday.
Who was it?
It was Wade Gofton.
Okay.
But I know the guy that does, Pollock. He just did my elbow recently.
He's the best.
Yeah. So we had the funny conversation. Yeah. Because he was saying something about Devon, asked if I knew, because, he sees a bodybuilder. He's like, you're a muscular guy, this guy.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm like, it's funny you bring that up. I show him my scar.
No way.
I'm like, this is fucking Devon right here.
Oh my god.
This was August, so 6 months ago. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, so Jay Pollock just did. I had an arthroscopy on this right elbow, just some arthritis.
He's so good.
He's great. I mean, it's helped a lot. I mean, my elbow, I was like you. I was here. So now it's
good,
better, but
good.
But yeah, it's just fucking wear and tear from pressing lots of weight on that elbow. So
wild.
So yeah, that was a small world moment. And then I remember walking out of I got some imaging done. I'm at the Civic of the Queens by Carlton, and there's a big fucking poster of you.
Well, I've given him so much business. I've given him so much business. Yeah.
So I'm walking out. I'm like, this is fucking a full circle moment here.
It is funny.
So yeah, but that was it, and I still got the hardware in the arm today. It's all bolted up now.
It is.
Yeah. So I got a big rod.
Is it giving you any trouble?
No, not really. I mean, I notice it on some like things that have a lot of lateral pressure. Like I'm doing heavy lateral raises or front raises where there's lateral pressure on the bone. The first 2 years, that was something that I just had to mentally be like, look, it's not hurting you. This isn't going to cause an injury. It's just pain. So just do it and it'll get better. And it did.
It did.
So, and that's honestly a thing I see a lot with guys that have this injury is they have a bad feeling and they never recover from this injury. Man, I broke it 7 years ago and it still hurts when I do this. So they don't do it.
Right.
Where I'm like, look, your bone is healed. What you're feeling is just pain. It's not causing an injury. So just work through it and it will get better. Once you get that load bearing exercise on there, it will be better.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things, the first couple months, year or two, it's I'd be doing laterals and it was excruciation. Yeah. Just getting that arm up, the lateral pressure. And then it went away, And then, I had a pro career.
Yeah. So you went pro
Well, I guess, because that was 2012. June 2012. I turned pro in July 24.
Oh.
Or 2014. Sorry. Yeah. So just over 2 years later.
Yeah.
So, but it's funny because I had like a little bit of I had got really sick before that. So before I had broken my arm, the year before I'd done Canadian Nationals for bodybuilding as a junior bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Which I won. And then I got really sick. I got like a staph infection that went septic. I was in the hospital for like a month with a PICC line IV, and it was from dirty towels.
Wow, dirty towels.
Yeah, because back then in bodybuilding, they would use like cotton towels on stage, and you'd have 30 guys sweating on the stage.
Wow.
They'd wipe down 20 guys with the same cotton towel.
Incredible.
And you're all shaved with your, pores open. So I got a staph infection in my chest. And it wasn't, I'll say to everybody, I wasn't sticking needles in my chest yet. I was too young for that stuff yet. But I was, so I got this staph infection in my chest. And I thought it was just like inflammation. I just competed. I was like, maybe it's just a tweak. So I just left it, and it like grew and grew. Oh, you should have seen. I had like a 400cc breast implant. It looked fucking hilarious.
God, wow.
So I was living alone. So I just went home. But then eventually a week later, it started to get where I couldn't sleep. Like it was heavy, and it was like I couldn't lay down. So I was sleeping sitting in a chair. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, just go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I went to a walk-in clinic. I didn't even go to the hospital. I lift up my shirt. The person like touches it. They're like, go to the hospital right now. Like, don't even go home. Go straight to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. He jabbed a needle in it. He just wanted to see what was in there. He jabbed a needle, and there was so much pressure in it, he didn't even pull back the plunger. It was just like full of like muck,
Whoa.
So he's like, I had surgery 45 minutes after that. Like they rushed me in emergency surgery. But by then it had kind of seeped a little bit.
Opened it up.
Yeah, so I have a scar on the side. They opened it up and put like a drainage tube in there. And then get in there with like the wire brush and fucking they have to get all of it out.
Really?
And then I ended up staying in the hospital for like 3 weeks after that. I just lived at the fucking Queens by Carlton, like in a bed where they kept an eye on me because the infection kind of spread. So I had infections in like, internal organs and stuff like that. And then I got what's called a PICC line, which is basically an IV that they like feed in your bicep right into the left ventricle of your heart. So it pumps out like the antibiotic goes into your heart, and then your heart pumps out fresh antibiotics every time instead of being diluted by the dirty blood, Wow. And I had that on for 3 months. So I had a fanny pack with an IV pump for 3 months. So I couldn't work out. I couldn't do anything for 3 months. Like I couldn't even work really because I was working at Popeye Supplements at the time. So like lifting boxes, I couldn't use the arm. So like I had to like go to work and I couldn't really do much. Wow. So just as I got back from that, I like got back in the gym training in like January, February. And then in June, so I like just got all my muscle back, and then I break my arm in June with you. And then after that, I was like, fuck this, I'm done with bodybuilding,
Wow.
I kind of was like, I'd called it, like all these bad things are happening. I broke my arm, I get infected, I'm like, fuck this. I kind of had like a give up moment, Wow. And then I met my wife, Melissa, like in September of that year. And after we'd been dating for like 6 months, a year, she could obviously tell that I was like holding back from doing something I wanted to do. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? She's like, go compete again. She's like, if you don't like it, then don't do it ever again. But she's like, I can tell you want to do it. Like, just fucking do it. So that was 23, early 23. And then I turned pro a year later. And then the rest is obviously, I had a 15-year career after that.
Great career in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So I'd love to pick your brain about bodybuilding for a bit.
Sure.
Yeah. So why did you bodybuild?
That's a question for my therapist.
Yeah. I look at
deep-seated insecurities fueled by mom issues. I don't fucking know. You know what I mean? Like, look, it started. I was always like the strong kid.
Yeah.
Like I was always, when it comes to like physical abilities, like whether it was being faster, stronger, jumping higher, I'm extremely competitive, and I always just want to be better than everybody and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was when I was young, for sure. I ran track like competitively when I was young, and I kind of got into football, started lifting more weights. And then when I started lifting more weights, I just got like really strong and really jacked really fast. And I was like, I like this,
Yeah.
I like the strength, like when you just fucking, feel it. Like,
yes.
That's what I liked. So then I kind of just latched onto that. And I just like didn't think too much about it. I started doing it, and then I remember this too, like, and whoever this fucking guy was, I guess, thank you. I saw him I trained at the YMCA that used to be in the Corral Center, Scotiabank place back then. There was a YMCA in the basement there. And this guy saw me at the gym, and he's like, dude, you should compete. Like, I think you could do really good. I have a few friends that are bodybuilders, and they're like high-level guys. I'm like, you look better than these guys. And I knew nothing. I didn't even know. I knew like Ronnie Coleman, buddy. Like, fuck, I knew shit all about bodybuilding at the time. And so then, and I decided to compete from there. And then once I did one, I like caught the bug, and that was it. And then it's forever. Bodybuilding is like forever chasing the white rabbit. You know what I mean? It's like, like any of these physical pursuits. It's like next time I'll be better. Next time I'll be better. Okay, I knew what I did wrong. This time I'll change this time, you know?
Yeah.
And I did that for 20 years. You know what I mean?
Well, you learn a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, you never know enough. Like, I'm retired now for 2 years, and, like, I know now more now than when I was competing. And I'll know now more in 2 years, just like you, I'm sure. You know, how your process for doing all this versus, you know, in 2012 when, you know, we first met, I'm sure what you do has evolved and your process has changed and you learn more, and it's always kind of ongoing, and that's kind of how it was. And it was, just chase that white rabbit of, like, being a better bodybuilder forever, which I loved, you know. I was a gym bodybuilder, not a stage, but I don't like going on stage in my fucking trunks and doing a posing routine. Like, if that wasn't part of it, I would have been completely happy. You know, I love just the training and, like, the process of, like, the challenge of the diet, and, like, when people get hungry and they're like they want to do, you know, cheat on their diet, or, like, it gets hard, I'm like, this is the stuff I, like, dove into, of, like, the mentality side of it, of, like, I want to do it better, you know, do it harder than everybody else, train harder, diet harder, be better at that kind of stuff. And that's all I, like, really latched onto, you know. And then I just kept doing that. Yeah.
How big is bodybuilding now compared to when you started?
Well, social media obviously changed things a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it gave everybody a lot more opportunities, a lot more, you know, vision on the sport. You know, like, when I started bodybuilding in 2010, it was like, unless you were getting the big magazine contracts, you know, like a Weeder magazine or Flex magazine, you were a fucking nobody. You know what I mean? But now, if you could be a mid-tier pro and have a good social media presence and make fucking $100K a month, you know?
Right.
So, like, it's very different. So, yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, it's definitely changed. The sport's obviously grown because of that exposure. I mean, I'm sure what you've seen in arm wrestling as well, you know, with the exposure to social media, you know, big content creators that kind of get involved in it, and then it helps grow. And your presence obviously has been, you know, monumental for arm wrestling. But yeah, no, it's definitely been a big change for sure. Yeah.
Have you like, has the level risen?
It depends who you ask.
Yeah.
You know, there's obviously guys that are fucking super nostalgic about 90s bodybuilding.
Sure.
You know, like the Flex Wheeler, Dorian Yates,
Right.
like, that will say these guys are the best ever. I see what they're saying. It's just a different game. Like, guys are bigger now. It's just different. Like, I think it's kind of gone in peaks and valleys. Like, I think early 2000s, it's like guys were really big, but their fucking guts were out and their conditioning was mud. And then it kind of went back, and it's kind of gone through peaks and valleys. But no, I think the level today is definitely the highest it's ever been, in my opinion. Golden era people or 90s guys don't fucking shit on me for that, but I think it's at the highest it's been for sure.
Has the training changed? Like, a lot, or?
I mean, I'm sure you've seen on social media, we're in, like, the fucking optimal era for everything right now.
Yeah.
You know, like, everything is, like, super science-based, like, slow, like, you know, everything's super duper sciencey, and everyone's trying to find, like, the best, most optimal, ideal way to do everything, which I think is great. But I think a lot of people have, like, lost sight of, like, what actually drives progress, which is just, like, balls to walls effort, you know? I think for any of these things, like, there's, like, a level of, like, attack that good guys have that people just that are searching for this sciencey thing lose, and they're trying to find a way to, like, beat that system. Right. Of, like, if I do everything super duper hard or super duper perfect and whatever, I can beat the, like, just doing it like a fucking animal. You know what I mean? And I think if you find a good healthy marriage of both, I think is probably the best case. But I think to find both is not commonplace. It's either guys that are, like, animals that do everything terribly, or guys that are science guys that train with, like, 2% effort, in my opinion, you know? So, but yeah, no, the training has changed a lot, but I think there's still a lot of guys that train, you know, like you would think of the Dorian Yates or the Ronnie Coleman, just, like, effort over everything, I think is kind of making a resurgence right now with certain guys. And that's what I'm always like. I think science is important because I don't think you should waste your time doing dumb shit.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, if you're losing sight of the effort to try and make up for that, I think you've lost the plot, you know?
So, you're retired.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I always kind of think it's funny when people who have achieved what you achieved say, "Oh, I'm retired."
I'm retired. Yeah.
Like, I mean, you still do it, right? You still train.
I still train the exact same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't train any different. I mean, like, look, if I'm traveling and I can't train that day, I'm not going to worry about it. Obviously, when I was competing, that wasn't an option.
Right.
Or, like, the meals. Like, look, I still get all my meals in every day. I eat a little less, obviously. But when I was competing, like, and this isn't even me trying to sound cool, I don't think I missed a meal for like a decade.
Right.
It was like, that was priority number one. I would stay up till 4 a.m. if I had to. I would go out of my way. Whatever had that was like priority one.
Yeah.
Where like now, like, yeah, if I'm going out to Arnold and I'm working all weekend, I'll fucking eat restaurant meals all day. But then I get home, it's 100%. Right. So that's the main difference, is just like the importance in my like life. But everything else, it's like, that's in my DNA. You know, like, I won't ever, as long as my body will allow it, I'll train like this till the fucking day that I can, you know, last day that I possibly can.
I'm sorry, I'm so curious.
Yeah,
so,
I love the question.
So what's your split? Do you have a schedule?
Yeah. So I do, like, honestly, the same thing I did when I was competing. Like, I'm very, you know, I go through kind of ebbs and flows of like what I feel is necessary to like make my physique better, or what feels good at the time. But I'm just like a chest and tries, back and bis, legs, shoulders, arms, that kind of thing, you know?
So 3-day split?
I guess it would be 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's basically push.
Yeah, like it's in some ways like a push-pull legs kind of variation.
Kinda.
Yeah, very similar to that. You know, which I've done. I mean, I've done, obviously, in my 20 years of doing this, I've done every variation you could possibly think of, you know?
Right.
So, but now, like, I train with a friend that we train every single day. Me and my buddy Jay train together every single day. So now I let him take a little more control instead of me being like the one, like, this is my career, it has to be how I want it, and you follow suit.
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, what do you feel like doing today? You know? And I'll just do that.
A little bit more chill.
It's a little more chill. Like, the workout isn't chill.
Right.
The workout is 100%. But in terms of, like, the selection of things, it's like, meh, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So, ideal bodybuilding, you know, gains and hypertrophy, like, you always hear, like, the basic 3 sets of 10.
Yeah.
Is that too low volume, or?
I'm even lower volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a low encroaching on moderate volume guy. I'll do maybe 12 total sets in a workout.
Okay.
Usually 2 sets on an exercise.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, more than 2, you can't keep up that level of performance on one exercise for multiple sets.
I love it.
So it's like me, it's like top set, like I'll, you know, do my warm-up sets that are very sub-maximal. Like if I'm putting on, say I'm going to bench 5 plates, let's say, I would do 1 plate for like 4 reps, 2 plates, 2 reps, you know, work up. So I'm not doing 15 rep warm-up sets. I want to spend as little energy as possible. And then my 5 plates, I'm fresh, I'm ready. I'll blast that as many as I can. And then my second set, I might just reduce the weight a little bit to try and match the reps. Because obviously if I actually went hard on that first set, I can't do 5 plates for the same amount of reps again. So if I need to go down 10%, 20% to match the 8 reps, 10 reps, whatever I did on that first set, I'll just go down to there, try and match it, and then I move on.
I've heard, like, you and I, we've both loved strength.
Sure.
You know, bodybuilding. I grew up with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So no competitive, loved bodybuilding as a kid.
Yeah.
And I follow the sport roughly, but you know, there's a lot of crossovers, you know, between strength fields.
Yeah.
Because I do consider bodybuilding a strength.
Sure.
Strength based.
Yeah.
You know, goes into aesthetics, but that's what strong looks like.
Yeah, but being strong and lifting weights builds muscle, and that's like what the foundation of all this is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about muscle damage and failure?
In what regard?
Hypertrophy.
Like, do I think that muscle damage has anything to do with hypertrophy? No. I don't think, this was the thought, and we always thought this, that like, you know, the breakdown of the muscle and then the rebuild is what builds tissue. I don't think I believe that. Right. I think we've kind of moved past that. I think now it's the maximum amount of tension you can place on a muscle, and then it's adaptation to that. Yeah. So I don't think it's like breakdown, build up, breakdown, build up. So I think it's placing as much concentrated mechanical tension on the muscle. And I think what I look at that as is more in the slowing of the concentric. So like on a curl, you know, eccentric, concentric, like the coming up, once that starts to slow down, like, you know, you get to, okay, rep 3, 4, 5, and then 6, you're starting to slow. Once you get into those reps that start to slow, that like slowed concentric, I think, is the point that is very valuable, where you're placing as much like delayed concentric like tension on the muscle and pushing into as many of those slowed down reps as you can, in my opinion, is the most valuable. Yeah.
And should there be a failure, like in terms of duration, and like should the muscle exhaust?
I am trained to failure every single set I do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Look, I don't know if that's optimal.
I
think it's just fucking awesome.
I think that's consistent among bodybuilders.
Yeah.
More so than
top bodybuilders, yes.
Yeah.
The science-based community that thinks they're more knowledgeable than top bodybuilders, no. They think they go in like the, what are they, RIR? Is that what they call it now? Reps in reserve. So it's like, okay, you leave 2 reps in reserve, 1 rep in reserve, 3 reps in reserve, and there's like a optimal value to that.
Interesting.
Which I think I'd rather just do less total volume, have all of them be 120% effort.
Yeah.
And that's partially for my own enjoyment.
Yeah.
I like the challenge of like, how far can I take this? That's like what is meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And that's like the challenge of it. I wouldn't do it if it was just like, if it was just for the gains and not the actual enjoyment of the process, I wouldn't like it as much.
Right. Yeah. This is fascinating because I've always kind of believed that bodybuilding athletes are going more towards failure, like they're seeking like more than.
I hope so.
I think so. Yeah. Like so with me and the training that I've done, I've started to move kind of further and further away from failure. Yeah.
But you're working more on high frequency.
Very high frequency.
Lower failure.
Yeah.
But that would make sense for you, I think.
I upped the frequency because I'm not. I can do it, right?
Yeah.
So I get like over the course of months.
Yeah.
I get more volume.
Yeah.
See,
I work similar in that the frequency, but then where I compensate for that is the total volume load is very low.
Yeah.
Where some guys like, if I was doing 20 sets in a workout, for total between the 5-6 exercises, 4 sets each, then I wouldn't be able to do the frequency. I'm going to failure, but my volume is pretty low. So then my recovery is not, like, obviously I'm older now, it's not what it was. But it's still, I find the volume mitigation is what I manage that with instead of the not to failure,
I believe that bodybuilding has probably had a greater impact on all sports than any other sports has had on other sports. You know what I mean? Like I feel like more athletes have been impacted by the sport of bodybuilding. Yeah. Like I think that almost all athletes have bodybuilding
foundations of training
somewhere.
Somewhere in them. They watched it, they liked it at some point, and there's some influence there.
Every athlete has bodybuilding in them somewhere.
I could agree with that.
So it's a beautiful part of sports as a whole, and I'm always super curious about it. Like when you think about your body, I'm always getting critiqued now.
Like, for what, your body?
All the time, all the time. Because I'll be 50 in a couple weeks, okay? Yeah. And I've had a long career.
300-pound Devon now,
right? It's terrible. We can get into that, but so I started off as an overall fit guy who found arm wrestling. Who did a military?
And you didn't find arm wrestling super young, right?
So I did it with my grandmother.
Yeah, okay.
And
I heard this.
In high school and in public school, recreationally, but I was like 18, and I found a pro, and the pro taught me.
And then you did your military career, and then after that.
But even when I was in the military, like when we met, I was in the military.
Yeah.
But like even when I was in the military, like I was running, I was functional, I trained my whole body. Yeah. I also arm wrestled, but once I got out, I really super specialized.
Geared it towards that.
Super, like I trained only for arm wrestling.
Yeah,
and I still do today.
Yeah,
partially because of all the injuries I got, and partially because I believe that it's probably for my arm wrestling. I believe it's probably the best choice.
I probably agree. Yeah.
It's definitely, there's some debate, but people are always like, dude, you need to do more functional but. Is there a difference, you think, between, like, when you're training your body, okay? Like, if you were going to lay down base, like, what do you think about the forearm? What do you think about the arm? Like, if you were a bodybuilder who only wanted to bodybuild their arm, how would you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've never trained my forearms in my life. I have, but not much. All my forearm development has been developed from just holding heavy weights.
Yeah.
Which, if you need to build them, train them, But I mean, if I would just want a gigantic arm, I mean, that would, obviously I would be doing, like you're doing, high frequency arm training, biceps, triceps, and I mean, train the forearm as much as you can. I don't think grip training I would do a ton, but just like actual, just like wrist curls and just like kind of beef that up as much as I could from a bodybuilding perspective. You know?
Yeah. Would you have rest days?
I would probably do alternating every day, one of the other.
Push pull.
Yeah, and just go back and forth, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just I would take rest days as I feel they're needed. But like this total stress, if I was training nothing else, I just want the arm. The total like nervous system fatigue and like other things that need resources to recover is nothing. You're just talking about the arms.
Easy.
So like to do it every day, yeah, I think you'd be fine.
Yeah.
So I think you could do it that way. Yeah. But any form training, like I get, it's like a running joke in my bodybuilding career. It's like, you know, I take the pictures and I do that, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like all forearms, you know? But I never, that was just a byproduct of like holding 800-pound deadlifts and 500-pound rows and, you know, things like that, just holding shit, you know? Which obviously it did convert to me having a very good grip strength, you know, better than a lot of bodybuilders would for sure.
I saw.
Yeah. So my grip is good.
Yeah,
you
really
know?
good.
But it's like, it's not something I've trained in any serious regard, you know, or like done much forearm or grip training, you know, but I watch a lot of arm wrestling. I mean, I follow it all, you know, for sure. Yeah.
Are you thinking about getting back in there or what?
I look, I'm after bodybuilding life, you're looking for like something to like fill a bit. Look, nothing ever fills the void of like your first passion, but there's always like something about arm wrestling that interests me, and I watch it all. Like I watch all the, you know, pay-per-views, all the East versus West. I watch, you know, you and Corey West last week. I watch all that, you know. I follow the sport very closely, and I know a lot more about it, but I've never done any of it, you know.
It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that idea of that, like, the intensity behind it, and like how you describe it as like almost like fighting or martial arts on a table, like that is what, like, that intensity is what excites me about it.
I love it.
And when you watch it and like watch those guys, like that intensity is what I love, and that's what I dove into in bodybuilding, you know.
Well, dude, I remember when we pulled, I was like, you could do this. I'm sure you're just like you were.
Yeah.
Like, are you in Ottawa right now still?
I live in Cart.
Oh, dude. I tell you, there's arm wrestling in the city like 4 nights a week.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's something I got to dive into.
Yeah.
But now from you, let's hear. Okay, so 2012.
Yeah.
When we saw now, because obviously your career has changed a lot, especially now with like you know the social media. I mean, you've made a huge resurgence to arm wrestling from like a perspective. Give me kind of the rundown. 2012. You said you were still in the military.
Yeah.
But you were still a world level arm wrestler at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a few weeks after I saw you, I won the world title
against Andre.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then came like the WAL era.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was awesome, but that was around the time when everything was really good, but at that point I was like mid-30s, and my elbows were starting to crap out. So I had right arm surgery. Then a couple years later, I had left arm surgery, and so I stayed like in the 225-pound division.
Yeah.
And so I tried to stay there. That was great. Loved it. Loved that division. Very healthy. And in 2015, I got kind of hit with an ultimatum from my work, like either stop arm wrestling or, so I took a year's leave and ended up getting out of the military in 2016. So I retired, and then I became, full-time, and WAL held on for a couple years. We were doing great work there, and then COVID. COVID was, for arm wrestling,
probably was awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Because all the main sports, they all took a break, and people were on the computers a lot, and that's when so many people found arm wrestling.
Yeah. Now, what do you think was that first catalyst that like brought it into the limelight? This, like, what do you think?
I think that the real first pop was we did a King of it was Larry Wheels.
Okay.
I think was a big initial like
when he started doing it.
Yeah, for like when you look at the arm wrestling, we've always been doing our thing, but Larry Wheels is a prominent figure in the fitness community.
Of course,
and his manager Adam started to kind of push Larry a little bit that way, and
because he dabbled in it. When he was younger, right?
Yeah.
Adam Silver. Yeah.
Right, and then so they had, I think, and COVID was still going on. Like there was still travel restrictions and everything, but Dubai opened up first, and Dubai. So they organized the King of the Table. It was an arm wrestling event. They had a few people on the card. It was pay-per-view, and it did awesome.
Yeah.
Not much was going on. Everybody was interested.
I watched them all. Yeah.
Right. And from there, we kind of realized that there was an audience and it was growing and everybody's metrics were going up. And so now we are in the era of King of the Table and East versus West.
Yeah.
Arm wrestling's totally different.
Yeah.
This last, like since COVID, before COVID, it was kind of split. We had Western professional leagues and Eastern professional and contracts, and there was not.
Just a massive. Yeah.
Yeah, there was not a lot of, and now it's like every 6 weeks there is a world level event.
Yeah.
There's world titles,
Yeah.
weight classes, and it's way more structured. The best guys are facing. So the top of the sport now is super checked out, and there's tons of arm wrestling everywhere.
Yeah.
The sport's grown tremendously.
Yeah.
And I'm still going, man.
Yeah.
Still going, yeah.
So now, in terms where you are in your capabilities as an arm wrestler now, would you say you're at your best?
I think that I just did my very biggest peak ever, just maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago. I feel like it was now. I went to Georgia, and there was a guy, Gennady Fikvina. He beat me anyway. So I thought, man, I was like 300.
Yeah.
That was big and sub-nuclear and my life is so simple now.
Yeah.
Like as I've aged, there's advantages and disadvantages to aging.
Sure.
The advantage for me has been I've been able to simplify my life a lot and just have the luxury now of training.
Yeah.
All day if I want.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
And my family's in line, my sons, my daughter, my wife, everybody is supportive.
Yeah.
And I basically trance out.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, I train all day, I eat, I repeat. And when I do that for 2 months, I become very strong.
You get strong.
Very strong.
Yeah.
So I'm in this place where at almost 50, I'm probably the best I've ever been. And I think I have capacity to continue to reach new heights. I really do. And it's my intent. Levon Saginashvili is. Yeah. He's so good.
Crazy. Yeah. He's
so good. He's, when I asked the question for you is, I know there's bodybuilding titans from the past, famous. And we have that to a certain degree. We have John Bazing. Cleve Dean, Gary Goodrich. There's been great arm wrestlers in the past, but this guy is
a monster.
He's monster.
Yeah.
In all aspects.
Yes.
So the ceiling has been really pushed. So all the super heavyweight division in arm wrestling now is
well, it's everyone's chasing, so everyone's getting leveling up. Yeah. It's like the Ronnie Coleman here in bodybuilding.
Right.
It's like this guy was so much better that everyone else got so good trying to chase that.
Right.
And got so big,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at right now. So my long-term goal is probably in 2026, I'll try and face him again.
Okay. Because you just arm wrestled Corey.
Yeah.
It was just
that's left hand.
Left hand, yeah. So what's next? Do you have another match plan?
Yeah. So there's so nothing is official, but there's a very high likelihood that I arm wrestle a guy called Vitaly Larratt.
Yeah, I know it.
Right? Great, big, tall Russian, genetically really gifted for the sport. Right? He's got the best grip.
I know.
Yeah. So very dangerous arm wrestler. He hurts people. He hurts people. On the arm wrestling table, most people who face him walk away with an injury.
Yeah.
And just super slick. And, we've kind of been staying away from each other for,
When was the last time you pulled him?
I've never pulled him.
Never?
I pulled him on a practice table.
Okay.
Lots.
Okay.
And he creams me.
Okay. So after match, it's just fucking around.
Every single time I touch this guy's hand, he destroys me.
Okay.
Demolishes me a million. Yeah, he's terrifying. But I still think I can beat him.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between practice table.
But you beat guys that beat him, but it also is a styles make matches.
That's the thing. So ranking wise, I'm ranked higher than him.
Yes.
But he's like this guy who everybody really believes, myself included, has just tremendous potential to be the guy. and he's changed his life a little bit, so it's more and more likely that he could be.
Okay.
He's got a big match in like a few weeks.
Okay.
In Turkey
With
Michael Todd.
Okay.
Okay. Now the winner of that match gets a shot in Levon in December.
Yeah.
But
Michael just faced Levon last year, right?
no, Michael's never faced him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Michael is like Michael is in a special place in his life.
Yeah. All right. So we were just talking about, how you obviously tried to put on a bunch of weight and you were the 300-pound Devon was the fucking meme going around here.
Yeah.
What, from a bodybuilding perspective, I'm curious, like what your diet was like trying to get that heavy. Is this like a structured bodybuilding, weigh your meals, calculate, all these things, or is this just get in all food at all costs?
Yeah. So like to put in like some previous to like my whole life I've been trying to get big and strong. My whole life. So I've like since I was a little kid, I'm trying to eat, grow, and get big. Right. Yeah. So got more. That's one thing I could do better. Like that's one thing I super admire about the top guys in your field. It's very structured. You have your meals, you have your timings. It's very, very good. Yeah. It's something that I've not done as well as I could. I've been much more. I just go by feel, but I try and eat the right foods at the right time. I know I've experimented a ton with different diets and different ways. I've gone even as far as like I've done fasting stuff, which I know is, kind of a weird way to think about,
Getting bigger.
Yeah, but there's some weird stuff in there that can be beneficial, I think. But it's not something I do a lot. But mostly I'm just eating regularly meat and carbs. Okay.
And how many meals a day? 1, 6, 10?
Probably
4?
I average 5.
5, yeah.
And then I snack.
Yeah.
But probably 5 is what I can normally pull off. Now, one of the things I do sometimes, which is probably not that smart, is I do buffets.
Okay.
Just because
hit the buffet and get it in.
And just I'm like a snake.
Yeah.
I just sleep.
Yeah.
But I think that that can be fun. And it's definitely gluttonous, and it's I've had much better results from just consistently eating more.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a limiting factor for a lot of bodybuilders too, is that next level of growth is just getting the amount of food in. Like even if it's your full-time job, which it is for a lot of these guys, just the amount of food is like
really difficult.
Hard,
Really, really
when I think when I was at, I'm 5'10", my heaviest I was 308, 310, it was like my life was a revolving door of eating. It's like I would wake up, I would eat, I'd go back to bed, I'd wake up, I'd eat again, I'd go train, I'd eat, I'd sleep, I'd eat, I'd sleep. And it was like you're eating the next meal, you're still full from the last one. And it's just like piling food on top of food, and it's like never ends. You wake up the next morning, you're still full from the meal before. And it's just like, it's a very monotonous, like very mentally difficult time. And people talk about like bodybuilding, like the preps and, getting really fucking peeled and how little they eat and stuff like that as the hard thing. I think a hard off-season pushing food is like exponentially more difficult.
Way harder.
It's not even comparable.
Way harder.
Like just don't eat. That's not hard to me.
No problem.
I could eat 0 meals a day. No problem. And people are like, oh, you say that. I've done it. I've been as peeled as anyone in the universe has been peeled, I know that that's not nearly as hard as getting like super duper heavy and still trying to be able to perform at the same time. When you're eating all that food and then you're trying to train, it's fucking hard, man.
100%.
Your lower back's pumped. You fucking feel like you're going to throw up. You're nauseous. You're like, this sucks. You know what I mean? It's a tough place to live in.
I hate it. Yeah. It's super difficult to eat all the time. And I have a problem with knowing that I'm getting fat.
Yeah.
It kind of does something, but I also know that I have to be a little bit in that state to get strong like I want to get.
Yeah. Weight moves weight, Yeah.
The big revelations that I've had over the past couple years or even couple months, Brian Shaw was very subtly a nice influence on me for it.
So he's extremely like methodical and structured with everything.
Like, and he didn't get into a lot of detail, but subtly he kind of spoke to me in a few different ways where it kind of, the same way that we were talking about intensity and volume and, going to failure, I think I was doing more of that with my eating. Like, I was eating so much.
He's like, reel it back. Yeah.
Yeah, so
There is a big aspect, obviously, like, more doesn't necessarily mean more. Like, your body can only grow at the rate it can grow, you know? Like, by eating more calories, it's not necessarily going to render more muscle. It will render more weight, but not necessarily muscle. Because, like, if you're in a surplus and you're training hard and fueling the training, you'll grow as fast as you can grow.
Yeah.
More will just be excess energy that will just be body fat. So it is hard to find that balance. But, you know, when you get bodybuilders or people that especially are having a lot of output, like doing the cardio, a lot of training, then you're trying to get the calories to match it. That's when it gets super hard, you know? So I would agree with Brian to some regard that you probably don't need to go as hard as you think.
And it wasn't so much about going so hard. It was about going so hard in an individual meal.
Yes.
Like each meal can be
smaller feedings more often.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like how bodybuilders, obviously, they're more in like the 6-7 meals,
Right.
you know, with maybe a shake post-workout, intra-workout, that kind of thing. So if you count those, you're 7-8 meals, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the typical, you know, thing for a bodybuilder is just more constant. But then you get to a point, where those are all big too, you know?
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're really trying to get really, really big. So it gets rough, you know?
So, what do you think, how long will it be before some IFBB pro is popping a pronator flex up on the
Do the...
Yeah. How long
I
do you
don't know.
think?
Maybe, I mean, with how popular arm wrestling is getting now, I mean, shit, you know, it's probably not too far off, you know?
Yeah, that's my dream, to one day see a bodybuilder.
See a guy up there do the...
Oh,
Yeah, that'd be funny, but...
That would be great.
Cool.
You know, you are tied to arm wrestling royalty. Sorry, bodybuilding royalty as well.
Yeah.
You know, you married Melissa.
Chris Bump says. You know,
right.
This is the ongoing joke in my life is that I'm not Ian, I'm C-Bump's brother-in-law.
Right. I saw the thing. That was funny.
This is like the joke in my life is like just C-Bump's brother-in-law, you know?
Is he, he's different, yeah?
In what sense?
Like,
yes,
like,
obviously.
Like, I mean, I mean, you can train all you want, you're not going to be.
Oh, genetically.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a, you know, you look at pictures of him when he was in high school, he was like a man amongst children. You know? Like but look, he started doing things better than most very young, you know, eating structured meals, training really hard, you know, and I think that's, the training really hard, I think when we were talking earlier, is like something you can see in guys really young. Like, you know, that if a guy just has that, like, you know, from a young age, you're like, all right, there's something that can be made with this, you know? So he's always had that. Like he was, you know, in high school, deadlifting 600 pounds, squatting 500 pounds. And like, you know, he looked like he could be teaching his friends. You know, like he looked like an adult in high school, you know?
Yeah.
So when I met Melissa in 2012, Chris was like in grade 11, you know? So like, but even then you could see like he was different, you know? Like he was different. Did I know he would be who he became? Obviously not. And the division he ended up becoming like the greatest of all time in that classic physique division didn't even exist for another, you know, 5-6 years after that, you know? So that was a newer thing that came because he just competed as a bodybuilder like the rest of us. And at that point, like I was better than him. So like I didn't think that his, you know, that it would end up where it was, but you knew that he had the potential to be something good and special. And he was beating older guys with a lot more like, you know, time in the sport than him very early on. So like you obviously knew there was something there. But when that classic physique division came out and he found that kind of lane for him, you know, where there was this new division that was different and kind of like appealed more to like the social media world, you know? It's not like the freak big bodybuilders, which everyone likes to watch, but the younger kids like this like, you know, aesthetics, and that was kind of making its way into the sport. And when he found that lane and then, you know, kind of doing the vlogging and the social media, that obviously blew him up from a social standpoint. But yeah, no, I mean, he's just genetically bone structure. He's perfect. You know, he's the right height, not too tall, but not short, like 6 foot, 6'1", wide clavicles, small joints, good detail to his muscle. And he's just like the best, you know, just better than everybody else. That's just something you can build to a point, but in bodybuilding especially, like you just got to be born with it, you know.
Have you ever arm wrestled him?
Yes.
How does that go?
Well, obviously I beat him.
Oh, good.
Come on.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
You're the only arm wrestling match I've ever lost. You know?
That's great.
And I really lost that one. You know?
That's good. That's good. You know.
So
yeah, that's fun.
No, and I saw you did some stuff with David Lade too.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, because he was down in Florida. Because obviously him and Chris and Jim Shark, they kind of know each other. So he was down in Florida actually, and he was you know, these guys get into it and they just want to grab everyone. You know?
What a smart guy.
Yeah, super smart.
Super
fucking
smart.
do magic tricks for you all day too. You know?
Oh yeah, he was here.
I just want to sit and watch him do magic tricks all day.
I was like, wow, like really.
But yeah, we were in Florida and we're sitting there and he's always, you know, grabbing my hand. You know, he's doing it. And I'm like, this is a guy that's in arm wrestling right now. It's a new thing for him, you know?
Yeah.
So that was awesome. But man, I saw he was down here and you guys did some shit together, so that was cool.
It's great, you know, we want guys to come.
Yeah.
We want them to try it. We want to get them on the stage early, like before they're supposed to be, just to you know match them up and bring excitement. You know,
but it's something that like makes so much sense for guys that are interested in like strength sports to love arm wrestling. It's like such like not a departure at all that anyone that loves to train would love arm wrestling. You know, like the training of it and like you said, how minimalistic it can be.
Yeah.
You know, it's awesome. You know, there's like a super like nice simplicity to that. But then there's a high level of technicality and like the effort that goes behind it is just like super appealing to I think anyone that loves that kind of shit. You know, whether you're a powerlifter, strongman, like Brian. You know, like when I see these guys doing it, like or Larry, I'm like, this makes so much sense. Even me watching it, I'm like, this makes sense why we love this shit. You know?
Yeah. You want to talk about training for a bit?
Sure.
Yeah. Because I'm hoping secretly to pull you in, right?
Sure. You won't take much. You know?
Man, that's great.
Look, I'm done my bodybuilding career.
Yeah.
You know, like, look, I had the joke in getting back on stage, and who knows? My wife and I are trying to have kids right now. So, like, that's obviously, like, my main priority. And
that's a perfect time to do it.
Yeah. And, like, me cranking myself like I was when I was bodybuilding is probably not the best thing to do to have a kid right now.
Right.
So I'm taking a different lane in that.
Good.
And just loving training and, like, doing different shit. Like, the stuff that I didn't do when I was bodybuilding because it didn't make sense. You know, like, trying stuff like this or, like, even, like, you know, fucking riding motorcycles, going snowboarding, like shit that I'm like, I didn't do for 15 years because I'm like, if I hurt myself, it fucks my life up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where now I'm like, well, I don't care. You know, I want to try it all. Like, this is a new, like, avenue of my life of, like, finding new passions that make sense for me, you know? So, you know.
I split my arm wrestling into kind of 3 or 4 parts. The fourth part is the most important part, and that's competition, right?
Table time of, like,
competition.
Okay.
Not
that's separate then.
It's different.
Yeah.
But it's also the part that everything revolves around. And I think if you're a practitioner of arm wrestling, like there should be a competition piece. You know, at the end of every training cycle, block, whatever, because it's like the highest level of practice.
Yeah.
You know, it's when everything comes together and you express your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that's always got to be considered. You know, when you think about trainings, you think about the end of the training.
Yeah, yeah. Or like the peak of prep for a show in bodybuilding. You know.
Yeah. Like you put like the thing is, there's arm wrestling lifestyle. The same way you're kind of like in bodybuilding lifestyle right now.
Yeah.
But I like to think that you should try and culminate it. You should.
That makes sense.
We have table practice. It's massive, right? So table practice above everything should be safe.
Yeah. If you're getting hurt, you're not making progress, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So we try and be safe, and it's technical, right? So you're practicing the sport, and you do that as much as you can. But arm wrestling table practice can be tough. Like you're gonna get sore.
Of course.
Yeah. It's demanding, especially if you're like not at the top of the club and your club is pushing you a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the trickiest thing to manage is the table practice. And we have in Ottawa, we got tons of groups.
Yeah.
Like almost every night there's a table practice going on. That's a big part, and I think that stays the same no matter really at what level you're at. Like you hear a lot of senior guys, like guys who've been arm wrestling 20 years. Like, oh, I don't really need to pull on the table.
Yeah.
I know how to arm wrestle.
Yeah.
I think it's more about the integration of everything onto the table. So for me, I continue to practice table as much as I can. The next big one is strength. It's really what's going to win your world title.
Yeah.
Strength.
Yeah.
And and you have to be tricky with strength. And these two pieces, the rehab and the strength, kind of work together. Rehab conditioning and strength are different.
So what do you mean by rehab conditioning? Like,
so a lot in arm wrestling, you're gonna get connective tissue strains. You're gonna get tendon issues.
Yeah.
and these got to be worked out. You can't really let them sit.
So when you mean this is like you doing certain exercises, or is this like getting massage work? Like,
No.
Okay.
For me, it's movement.
Movement. Okay.
Progressive.
Yeah.
Not super I normally work rep range 50 to 100.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, just
as your rehab work.
Rehab.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, rehab. You can throw in that there is conditioning in there too, but it's really to keep your connective tissue and joints and musculature healthy. Not
like getting blood in there and keeping this pliable.
Right. Yeah, because the connective structure needs it.
Yeah.
In the sport.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Sure.
And in that rehab and conditioning work, you kind of hit all of arm wrestling. You kind of hit all the little moves, all the little things that you need. But when it comes to the pushing of strength, this is where it gets very interesting. Because there's a lot of things that go on in arm wrestling, but they're not all of the same value. So you want to kind of pick the ones that are like the most important, I think. Okay. So I only really, right now I do like 2 exercises.
Which are? Like, what do you think are the most important facets to like strength of an arm wrestler? Like cupping, rising, like what do you think is like your pronation? Like what is the most?
I think the thing is there's a lot going on in the sport, and I give my best answers, okay, to myself.
Sure. This is your answer. Yeah.
But understand, I want you to understand that my answer, like when I look over the past 5 or 10 years, when I've loved the sport like crazy, and then my answer's not always the same.
As it shouldn't be, yeah. Changes it.
Yeah, but right, and it revolves a lot around who's the best, and the problems that you're trying to solve.
Sure.
But I really think that a lot of arm wrestling is negotiation of grip.
Yeah.
Right. So before they start the match, there's a lot of stability. There's a lot of little negotiations, but this is done at like somewhat of a sub-maximal intensity. It's great to have the strength, but you're not normally failing in the setup. And then once the referees and you negotiate a pretty fair spot for you both to do your strongest, the first thing you're trying to do is dominate the hand. And rise is very interesting, but I really think that the main thruster is cupping and rolling.
Cupping and rolling, yeah.
Basic. It's the most basic thing in arm wrestling. Bend your wrist in and
pull back
and roll into the person's fingers.
Yeah. And open those fingers up.
That makes the person lose their hand.
Yeah.
That is the meat and potatoes of arm wrestling. So
does that matter more in a strap or out of the strap, or is that all the same?
It's pretty much the same. Okay. Pretty much the same. There are small little differences, but it doesn't change the value of those 2 pieces. So I plan on, and have been, so basically this was my lesson that I took from the last time I faced Devon. So that was like, I guess it's like a year ago now. Yeah. And since then, this has been like the way I've kind of been growing, and it's been good, and I plan on doing it until I feel it's broken. Okay. Yeah, so every day I do this training.
Focus on that.
Yeah, I try and this is my most important work, is this very simple base of volume that I'm adding every day into my life.
And is your volume progressive in it?
Yes.
Yeah, like works with a block?
Yeah. So basically the way I do is I have an end date. Okay, for me, my end date now is Vitali in August. And what I will do is, after every end date, I take all my numbers and I just drop them way down. Because I feel like what's even more important than the number is the sensation of progression. Yeah. Right? So right away after competition, I pulled Corey. I didn't really even actually count Corey. Yeah. I actually trained right through. Yeah. My last thing was Gennady. And so after Gennady, I dropped all my stuff, and I will slowly ramp all the way until August. And
is there a period like before that where you like reduce and like you want to be at 100% health going into 100%. That? And how long is that period?
It gets longer.
Okay. As you get older, it gets longer?
Yeah, it gets longer. It gets longer, and depending on how long I've worked, and if I screw up, because sometimes I screw up. like sometimes in the training, I'll injure myself, or I'll get sick, or I'll do something silly.
Sure.
Happens.
Yeah, like that.
And that will affect the taper. But if everything's perfect, really good, like I have no indications that I'm falling off or anything, I'll normally force myself, if I've had a good long prep like I will for this one, I'll normally, like the cutoff is normally like 2.5 weeks. Okay. 3 weeks. And at that point, I'm like, I no longer even approach anything difficult.
Okay. It'd be similar to bodybuilding too. Like as you're getting close to a bodybuilding show, obviously volume and like intensity would ramp down because you want to reduce that inflammation. You want your body to be as fresh and primed and ready, like looking its best for the stage, right?
Interesting.
So we would have that same, like you wouldn't want to be training at 1,000% intensity 5 days out from a bodybuilding show. Some guys don't even train the last week. Completely, maybe go in, do very minimal pump work, just kind of, get some blood in there and help, the food kind of go where it's supposed to go to kind of fill everything out. But yeah, it's definitely like a decline into the show for sure. Yeah.
How important is flexing?
Like actually flexing?
Like so you
posing.
guys...
Like we would call it posing.
Yeah.
Like practicing your posing, invaluable for, like super valuable.
Super valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and something I didn't do nearly enough, Like I said from the beginning, like I love the aspects that drew me to bodybuilding, which is the training and the intensity and the diet, the posing and all these things, which I knew were super valuable. Are just not something I ever found a high passion for. That obviously looking back in retrospect, hindsight's 2020. I wish I spent more time posing.
Yeah.
But if you look at the top guys, they're posing. I don't know how often you see these guys. Some of these guys are posing 30 minutes every day at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it should get to the point where it feels easy.
Right.
Like where you can be squeezing everything and it looks 100%, but it's very minimal effort for you. Where like you can see guys in their first couple shows. They're on stage, they're squeezing so hard, they're shaking, they're sweating. You see guys at the Olympia, they're hitting that perfect, and they could do that all day. Like guys like Hadi Chupa and stuff, they could stand on stage and they could just do rounds of posing and hit them 100%. They could do that for 40 minutes, with no wavering at all.
Posing make you stronger?
No, I don't think so.
Don't think so?
No.
Isn't that where bodybuilding kind of started?
With posing?
Yeah, didn't they start like in India where guys
the flexing and stuff?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, look, you're doing an isometric contraction. Is it going to do something? Maybe. But comparatively to the loads that you're putting on it on a regular basis in the gym, do I think it's going to be enough to force progressions? Probably not. Mm-hmm. Do I think it can make your physique look better? Do I think contracting the muscle in that way in the pose can change if you do it a lot and how they look? Like constantly, blowing out the air and flexing your abs and how they look from doing that over and over. Do I think it can change the look? 100%. Do I think it's going to make you stronger? Like I don't think flexing your chest all the time is going to make your bench press better, but do I think that it has a value in bodybuilding? Huge for sure. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I do a lot of flexing. I'm always
just of your arm though.
I'm always hitting that mirror every time I go by it.
See how big the forearms get today,
all the time, man. Yeah. All the time.
Now I have a question. When you see an arm wrestler and you guys are always kind of fucking grabbing at each other, what is the tells of like you can feel? Is it the feel of the hand? It's like if I was to like just if we grab here, like what is the feeling? Strong. What is the feeling of like?
I can feel you're strong.
But like when you feel someone, is there ever a guy that you grab his hand? You're like, I'm gonna fucking dust this guy, and then he's way better than you think? Or is there guys that grab your hand and they're so strong and they aren't good? Like what is that tell of like? Is there one?
There's a lot of tells. There's a ton of tells. Mm-hmm. So for one, I mean, it takes a long time to become a good arm wrestler. Typically,
of course. Yeah.
So you just know. You see them.
You know who's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like bodybuilding. The world's small. We all know who the good guys are. Yeah. There's no guy that's gonna sneak on there. I'm like, where's this guy? He could win the Olympia. It doesn't happen. It's impossible.
But say you didn't.
Okay.
Say you didn't. A lot of arm wrestlers, you look at him. If a guy can't straighten his arms,
something's.
He spent way too much time.
Yeah. Those tendons are all fucked up, and then
if his wrists are looking gnarly, like out of place, you're like, okay, she's done a lot of arm wrestling. Okay. A lot of it is the way that they grab you. Okay, like a good arm wrestler isn't going to touch you the way a normal person touches you.
In what regard? Like what?
So if you grab my hand, see already?
Okay. So you're not holding on.
Exactly.
Okay.
So even like a good arm wrestler will be so practiced in the sport that even in a handshake, they won't.
It's loose.
It's not that it's loose. It's that there's a procedure.
Okay.
There's a procedure that's happening. They will always have a better grip than you, even in a handshake.
Yeah.
Like they will make you hold on to them. They will be a little bit deeper than you.
Yeah.
So even in a handshake, you're like, okay, this fucking guy, you got.
Yeah.
Like
he's getting positioned.
Yeah. There's positional games that are always happening. So sometimes you shake a guy's hand and you know, okay, so he's playing games already, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Things that I look for, you can feel it in the thumb. Mm-hmm. Like if someone's got a big thumb pad, okay, that's an issue. Length of fingers, length of hand.
So is it hard to be a good arm wrestler with a small hand?
I would say standard answer would be yeah. It's going to be harder, but I'll also tell you that at the very highest levels, it doesn't seem to matter so much.
There is guys with small hands.
There's world champions who have little hands.
Sure.
Yeah, so, I would say normally, you want to...
Overarching answer, yes.
Yeah, but, it comes down to strength and strength in the right areas, and if you have strength in the right area, that's strong, you don't even need a hand. Mm-hmm. You don't even need one.
Yeah.
So much arm wrestling is just rising, and, if you can just generate enough, then the other person has to hold on to you. Mm-hmm. And then your hand is like secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But no, you get surprised a lot. Like sometimes you can't always see it. Mm-hmm. Like I know many people that are arm wrestlers and they're way stronger than they look. Mm-hmm. And then it does go the other way as well. But normally when it goes the other way, it's like they just haven't figured it out.
It's just technical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. The strongest people, a lot of times they just look healthy. Mm-hmm. Just healthy. They just look really healthy.
Yeah, you can see that in bodybuilding too, though. I think.
Yeah.
Because like obviously there's, especially in bodybuilding, like there's a responsiveness to the body when it is healthy, like in that regard. Like in terms of like how your body is kind of utilizing everything and responding to that stimulus and the food and everything. Like look, obviously a lot of it isn't healthy, but the highest level you can maintain while doing everything is going to obviously achieve the best result.
So are you busy today?
No.
Today's an easy day?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I did say I owed you sushi.
Okay.
You want to do that at some point?
Yeah.
Okay, not right now.
No, whatever.
Yeah. Like I am really like I'm trying to win the freaking world title again.
Yeah.
Like I'd love it if you want. Do you want to work out this afternoon?
I'll do whatever, man. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll do it all.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, what I was thinking was, I would do like the workout that I always do. Like, this is not a special day. This is any normal day. I was down training yesterday, so I'm not. This is just a regular day. This is the strength workout that we talked about. Super base, and you can kind of jump in with that with me. We'll set you up. We'll let you kind of feel it. Just kind of go through the motions with me. And at the same time as I'm doing that, maybe I'll run you through like more of like the rehab side of it, the motions. Because if you were gonna do any of this, like if you wanted to add this in, I'd want you to kind of know all the movements that you kind of and you can get an awesome pump. Like for rehab, like you can blow up your arms really quick, and
that's a question, I guess. Then, how important, obviously, is like training to have like pump mitigation during a match? Because obviously, you don't want to get blown up during a match. Like is that just for, like from training you can help mitigate that? Like how is it? Is it guys that are newer into their arm wrestling endeavors generally get more pumped early?
Yeah. Pump is a thing.